I didn't plan to leave that day. I think that's what hurts the most. I woke up believing I still had time. Time to fix things. Time to talk. Time to convince myself that what felt wrong wasn't real. The apartment was quiet in that heavy way that feels louder than noise. The kind of silence that tells you someone has already left emotionally, even if their shoes are still by the door. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. Our wall. Or what I used to call ours. There was a faint mark where a photo frame used to hang, back when we still smiled in pictures. I remember thinking, when did we stop putting up new memories? She was already awake. I could hear her in the kitchen, moving things around with no care for how loud she was. Cabinets opening. A mug hitting the counter harder than needed. Normal sounds, but every one of them felt sharp. I stood up slowly and opened the closet. Most of it was her stuff now. Her clothes took up more space, brighter colors, carefully folded. My side looked smaller, almost embarrassed. I reached for an old backpack, the one I used before we moved in together. The zipper stuck for a second, like it didn't want to open again. I started packing without thinking too much. A few shirts. One pair of jeans. My charger. Wallet. Keys. That was it. A single bag. That's all I was taking from a life I spent years building. She leaned against the kitchen doorway when she noticed me. Her arms were crossed, her face calm in a way that didn't feel peaceful. It felt empty. "So you're really doing this," she said. Her voice wasn't angry. It wasn't sad either. That hurt more than yelling ever could. "I guess," I said. My voice sounded smaller than I wanted. She nodded, like I had just confirmed something she already knew. "You're being dramatic." That word. Dramatic. She loved using it when she didn't want to deal with my feelings. I wanted to ask her when she stopped caring. I wanted to ask who she was texting late at night. I wanted to ask why she smiled at her phone but barely looked at me anymore. But I didn't ask any of it. Because every time I tried before, she made me feel stupid for noticing. "You always overthink," she had said so many times. "You're insecure. You should be grateful I'm still here." I believed her. For too long. I walked past her to grab my shoes. She didn't move to stop me. That part stays with me. The way she stepped aside so easily, like I was just another inconvenience passing through her space. "Where are you going?" she asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. She laughed softly. Not cruel. Just careless. Figures. That laugh told me everything I needed to know. She didn't think I would survive without her. She thought I would come back in a day or two, apologize, and beg for things to go back to how they were. That thought burned quietly in my chest. As I tied my shoes, my phone buzzed. A message from my best friend. "You good? Haven't heard from you." I stared at his name for a moment. We had been friends since college. He knew everything about me. Or at least I thought he did. Lately, he had been distant too. Busy. Always busy when I needed him, always available when she needed advice. I typed yeah and erased it. Typed not really and erased that too. I put the phone back in my pocket. My sister was the only one who knew something was wrong. She had called me the night before, her voice tight with worry. "She doesn't talk about you the same way anymore," she said. "What do you mean?" "She talks like you're temporary." I didn't want to hear it then. I told her she was overthinking. Funny how I defended the same person who was breaking me. My sister saw the truth before I did. She stood in the doorway now, watching me zip the bag closed. "You don't have to do this," she said, softer this time. "I do," I replied. "For what it's worth," she added, looking away, "I think you deserve better." That almost broke me. I slung the bag over my shoulder. It felt light. Too light. Like my life didn't weigh much at all. I took one last look around the apartment. The couch where we watched shows without really watching them. The table where we ate in silence, phones between us like walls. The window where I used to wait for her to come home early in our relationship, excited just to see her walk in. None of it felt like mine anymore. She checked her phone while I stood there. Smiled at something on the screen. That smile wasn't for me. "I'll leave the keys," I said. "Do that," she replied without looking up. I placed them on the counter. The sound they made was small, but it echoed in my head. As I reached for the door, doubt rushed in all at once. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm throwing everything away? What if this is just a phase and I'm the problem? Those thoughts had kept me trapped for months. But then she said one last thing. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Harder. As if it hadn't already hollowed me out. I opened the door and stepped into the hallway. The air felt colder out there. Cleaner too. Like breathing hurt, but at least it was real. I paused, hoping, stupidly, that she might call my name. She didn't. I closed the door behind me. The click of the lock sounded final. Heavy. Permanent. I stood there for a second, staring at the door like it might open again on its own. Like she might suddenly realize what she was losing. Instead, there was nothing. I walked down the stairs with one bag and a chest full of doubt. I felt like I had lost everything, my home, my relationship, my sense of worth. I felt stripped down to nothing but questions and quiet pain. I didn't know yet that this was the first step forward. All I knew was that I was walking away empty-handed, convinced I had failed, unaware that the worst day of my life was quietly becoming the beginning of my transformation. The first night after I left, I didn't sleep. I lay on my back, staring at a cracked ceiling that wasn't mine, listening to sounds that didn't belong to me. A car passing outside. Someone coughing in the next room. A fan clicking every few seconds like it was counting my thoughts. I had rented the cheapest room I could find. One window. One bed. A smell of old paint and dust. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't home either. Then again, I wasn't sure what home meant anymore. My phone lay on my chest, screen dark. I kept waiting for it to light up. A message. A call. Anything. Nothing came. That silence felt heavier than every argument we ever had. At least fights meant she still cared enough to raise her voice. Silence meant I no longer mattered. I turned onto my side and closed my eyes, but my mind refused to follow. Memories played without permission. Her sitting on the couch, phone angled away from me. Her laughing quietly at messages she never shared. Her saying, "You're imagining things," when I asked why she felt so far away. I believed her. God, I really did. Around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. My heart jumped before my brain caught up. It was my sister. "Did you leave?" I stared at the message for a long moment before typing back. "Yeah." The reply came almost instantly. "Where are you? Are you safe?" "I'm fine," I lied. "Just needed space." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. I'm proud of you, she finally wrote. I swallowed hard. That simple sentence hit me harder than anything she had said before. I tossed the phone onto the bed and sat up, rubbing my face with both hands. My chest felt tight, like something inside me was trying to push out but didn't know how. Morning came slowly. I dragged myself to work on autopilot, showering in silence, putting on clothes that felt unfamiliar on my body. I caught my reflection in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. Dark circles. Slumped shoulders. Eyes that looked tired in a way sleep couldn't fix. At work, people talked around me, not to me. I nodded when needed. Smiled when expected. No one asked how I was, and I was grateful for that. During lunch, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was her. Did you calm down? That was it. No apology. No concern. Just that. I stared at the message until the words blurred. Calm down. Like my leaving was a tantrum, not a breaking point. I typed a reply. Deleted it. Typed again. I didn't leave because I was angry. I stared at the sentence, then erased it too. I didn't send anything. For the first time, I chose silence. The rest of the day crawled. By the time I got back to the room, my body felt heavy, like gravity had increased just for me. I sat on the bed and stared at the wall again. I thought about all the moments I stayed quiet to keep the peace. The jokes at my expense. The way she made decisions without asking me. The way my opinions slowly stopped mattering. I told myself that love meant compromise. That relationships took work. That rough patches were normal. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was shrinking to make her comfortable. Another message came in that night. This one from my best friend. She told me you moved out. What happened, man? My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Anger rose in my throat, sharp and sudden. So she told him. I wondered how she told the story. Did she say I was unstable? Dramatic? Did she leave out the nights she turned away from me, the conversations she avoided? I needed space, I replied. From her or from everything? I clenched my jaw. Both. There was a pause. Longer this time. You sure this isn't a mistake? That question echoed too closely to my own thoughts. I don't know, I admitted. But staying was killing me. He didn't reply after that. I lay back and stared at the ceiling again. My mind replayed small moments now, the ones I used to ignore. Her checking her phone during dinner. Her getting defensive over harmless questions. Her saying my goals were unrealistic. Each memory felt like a small cut. Not deep on its own, but together they bled me dry. The next few days blended together. Work. Room. Silence. She didn't call. Didn't show up. Didn't ask if I was okay. That hurt more than if she had been angry. It confirmed my worst fear, I was easy to replace. On the fourth day, my sister came by unannounced. I heard a knock and froze, heart racing. When I opened the door and saw her, something in me finally gave way. She hugged me without asking. I didn't realize I was shaking until she held me tighter. You don't have to be strong right now, she said. I laughed weakly. I don't think I am. We sat on the bed, knees touching. She looked around the room, her eyes soft but sad. She didn't deserve you, she said. I shook my head. You don't know everything. I know enough, she replied. I saw how you changed. How quiet you became. That word again. Quiet. I thought loving her meant enduring, I said. I thought if I tried harder, she'd come back to me. My sister sighed. Love isn't supposed to feel like survival. That sentence stayed with me long after she left. That night, I scrolled through old photos. Trips. Birthdays. Smiles that looked real back then. I wondered when things started to rot. When affection turned into obligation. I stopped on one picture where I was laughing, arm around her, eyes bright. I didn't recognize that version of myself anymore. My phone buzzed again. Another message from her. We should talk. I stared at it, heart pounding. Part of me wanted to run back. To hear her voice. To feel familiar pain instead of this empty space. But another part of me, the quiet part that had been growing stronger, asked a different question. What if talking only pulls me back into the same place? I didn't reply. For the first time, the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like protection. I lay down, closed my eyes, and let the quiet sit with me. It still hurt. It still scared me. But beneath all of it, there was something new. A small, steady realization. Walking away didn't make me weak. Staying silent didn't mean I lost. And maybe, just maybe, this pain was teaching me who I really was without her voice in my head. I wasn't healed. Not even close. But for the first time since I left, I felt something shift inside me. And I knew this silence, as loud as it was shaping me for what came next. I didn't go looking for the truth. That's what makes it worse. It came to me on a random Tuesday afternoon, in the middle of an ordinary day, through a moment so careless it felt almost cruel. I was at work, half focused, half lost in my thoughts, when my phone buzzed on the desk. A notification preview lit up the screen. It wasn't meant for me. It was a message sent to a group chat I hadn't been active in for weeks, friends, jokes, inside references from a life that already felt distant. My best friend's name was at the top. Man, you should have seen her last night. She was glowing. I stared at the words, my stomach tightening. Before I could process that, another message popped up. Not from him. From someone else in the group. Yeah, she looks happier now that everything's out in the open. Out in the open. My fingers felt cold as I unlocked my phone. I scrolled, heart pounding, reading messages that had nothing to do with me, and everything to do with me. They weren't talking about me. They were talking around me. Like I was already gone. Someone joked about timing. Someone else mentioned how long it had really been going on. No names were said directly, but they didn't need to be. The pieces slid into place quietly. Too quietly. The late nights. The secret smiles. The way my best friend suddenly had plans every time I needed him. I set the phone down slowly, afraid I might drop it. I felt numb. Not angry. Not shocked. Just empty. I stood up and walked to the bathroom, locking the door behind me. I leaned against the sink and stared at my reflection. My face looked pale, like all the color had drained out. So that's it, I whispered. I thought back to every time she told me I was imagining things. Every time my best friend laughed it off when I asked why he was distant. Every time I apologized for being too much. I had trusted them. Both of them. That night, I didn't drink. I didn't distract myself. I didn't pretend I was okay. I sat on the edge of my bed in that small room and let the truth settle. She didn't wait until I left to move on. She just waited until I stopped asking questions. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was my best friend calling. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. Then it rang again. On the third try, I answered. "Hey," he said, too casual. "You good?" I let out a slow breath. "How long?" There was silence on the other end. Not confusion. Not surprise. Just hesitation. "That's not fair," he finally said. I laughed, a sharp sound that didn't feel like it belonged to me. Neither was lying to my face. He sighed. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "Like what?" I asked. "Like me finding out?" Another pause. "I didn't plan to hurt you," he said. I closed my eyes. "But you did." The truth started spilling out in pieces. Not because he wanted to confess, but because once I knew, he couldn't pretend anymore. He talked about timing. About feelings that just happened. About how she was unhappy and how I deserved someone who could meet me halfway. I stopped him. "Don't do that," I said quietly. "Do what?" "Don't explain my pain like it's a favor." He didn't respond. I hung up before he could say anything else. That was the moment something inside me broke cleanly. Not shattered. Not exploded. Just snapped. I wasn't crying anymore. I wasn't shaking. I felt calm in a way that scared me. I picked up my phone and opened our old messages. Years of conversations. Promises. Inside jokes. Apologies I gave when I wasn't the one at fault. I deleted the thread. Then I blocked the number. I didn't do it dramatically. No speech. No final message. Just silence. The next morning, she texted me. "Why did you block him?" I stared at the screen, surprised by how little it hurt. "Because I don't trust him," I typed. 3 dots appeared. "You're being extreme." There it was again. I smiled sadly. Same script. Different day. "You lied to me," I replied. "Both of you did." A long pause followed. Then, "I didn't think you'd find out like this." Not "I'm sorry." Not "I hurt you." Just regret over the timing. That's when I knew. I didn't matter to her the way she mattered to me. I was a placeholder. A safe option. Someone to lean on until something better came along. I didn't respond. I turned off my phone and went for a walk, letting the cold air hit my face. Each step felt heavier, but also clearer. Like my body finally understood what my heart had been denying. I thought about all the chances I gave them to tell the truth. They chose comfort over honesty every time. By the time I got back to the room, I felt different. Still hurt, but steadier. Like the ground beneath me had stopped shifting. My sister called that evening. "I heard," she said gently. "Of course you did," I replied. "I'm sorry," she added. I didn't want to be right. I leaned back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Neither did I. We talked for a while. About boundaries. About how people reveal who they are when they think you won't leave. Before hanging up, she said something that stayed with me. "You don't have to prove anything to them. Just don't disappear from yourself." That night, I made a decision. Not revenge. Not confrontation. Disappearance. I deleted social media apps. Changed my routine. stopped going places where I might run into them. I wasn't running away, I was reclaiming space. If they were going to live their lives like I never existed, then I would do the same. Lying in bed, I thought about the man I had been, patient, forgiving, quiet to a fault. I didn't hate him. But I wasn't going to be him anymore. The betrayal didn't turn me cruel. It turned me awake. And as painful as that truth was, it marked the moment I stopped waiting for closure from people who never planned to give it. I didn't know what came next. But I knew one thing for certain. I was done explaining my worth to people who only noticed it after they lost access to me. No one tells you how quiet rebuilding is. There's no dramatic music. No applause. No moment where you suddenly feel strong again. It happens in silence, in routines so small they feel meaningless at first. But those routines saved me. I started waking up early. Not because I wanted to, because sleeping too long gave my thoughts too much room to roam. I'd sit on the edge of the bed, feet on the cold floor, and tell myself, get up. Just get up. Some mornings, that was the hardest thing I did all day. I stopped checking my phone first thing in the morning. That alone felt like a victory. No more hoping for messages that wouldn't come. No more rereading old words, trying to find meaning that wasn't there. Instead, I went for walks before work. Same route. Same cracked sidewalk. Same quiet streets. The world didn't care that my life had fallen apart, and strangely, that helped. It reminded me that everything keeps moving, whether you're ready or not. At work, I kept my head down. I volunteered for tasks I used to avoid. Stayed late. Learned things I had once told myself I wasn't good enough to handle. It wasn't about ambition yet. It was about proving something to myself. One evening, as I was packing up, my manager stopped by my desk. "You've been different lately," he said. I stiffened. "Different how?" "Focused," he replied. "Hungry." I didn't know how to answer that. Hungry felt like the right word. Not for success as yet, but for control. For ownership over my own life. A week later, he asked if I wanted to help on a project that came with more responsibility. Not a promotion. Not recognition. Just trust. I said yes without thinking. That night, I sat in my room with my laptop open, working until my eyes burned. For the first time in a long while, my thoughts weren't about her. They were about the task in front of me. It felt like breathing after being underwater. My sister noticed the change before I did. "You sound steadier," she said on the phone one night. "I don't feel steady," I replied. "You don't have to feel it for it to be true." I thought about that after we hung up. There were still bad days. Days when a song would come on and pull me back. Days when I'd remember the way she used to say my name when things were good. On those days, I let myself feel it, but I didn't let it stop me. That was new. One evening, I ran into an older guy in the building where I was staying. He lived 2 doors down. We'd nodded at each other before, nothing more. That night, he was sitting on the stairs, tying his shoes. "Long day?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. He smiled faintly. "They're all long until they aren't." I sat down a few steps away, not sure why. Maybe I just didn't want to be alone. We talked a little. Nothing deep. Work. Weather. Life. Before he stood up, he said, "Whatever you're rebuilding, don't rush it. Strong things take time." I didn't ask how he knew I was rebuilding. He just did. A month passed. Then another. I noticed changes, not the dramatic kind, but the kind you only see in hindsight. I stopped replaying arguments in my head. I stopped wondering what she was doing at night. I started making decisions without imagining how she'd react. That was freedom, even if I didn't call it that yet. One afternoon, I checked my phone during a break and froze. A notification. Her name. I hadn't blocked her. Hey. Just checking in. Hope you're doing okay. I stared at the message, surprised by my own reaction. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I felt curious. Detached. I typed a reply. Deleted it. Typed again. I'm fine. Hope you are too. That was it. No emotion. No explanation. No opening. She replied a few minutes later. You seem distant. I almost laughed. I'm just busy, I wrote. That wasn't a lie. After that, the messages came occasionally. Always casual. Always testing. She sent a photo of something we used to laugh about. A song we once loved. A memory wrapped in nostalgia, like bait. I didn't take it. I responded politely. Briefly. Sometimes not at all. I could feel the shift happening, even if she couldn't name it. She was losing access to me. And I was gaining myself. Around that time, my best friend tried to reach out again, from a different number. I recognized it immediately. I didn't answer. Not because I was angry. Because I was done. At work, the project went well. Better than expected. My manager pulled me aside again. You should think bigger, he said. You've got more in you than you realize. For a second, I almost told him he was wrong. Old habits die hard. But I didn't. I nodded instead. That night, I wrote down goals for the first time in years. Real ones. Not vague dreams I used to talk about but never chased. Concrete steps. Skills to learn. Money to save. A version of myself I wanted to meet someday. I didn't include her in any of it. That felt strange. And right. One evening, while scrolling through emails, I noticed a new follower notification on social media. I almost ignored it until I saw her name. She was watching. I didn't react. Didn't post anything extra. Didn't check her profile. I let her watch me live a life she no longer had a place in. That was power. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind. The kind that grows when you stop explaining yourself. The kind that builds when you choose discipline over drama. Lying in bed that night, I thought about the man I used to be, the one who begged for clarity, who doubted his instincts, who stayed silent to keep someone else comfortable. I felt compassion for him. But I didn't miss him. Rebuilding didn't make me fearless. It made me aware. Aware of my worth. Aware of my limits. Aware of how easily I used to hand my power away. I wasn't fully healed. I wasn't finished. But I was no longer hiding in pain. I was building in silence. And for the first time since I walked out with nothing, I knew this version of me, quiet, focused, grounded, was someone I could trust. Whatever came next, I would face it as a man who had learned how to stand on his own. In the shadows. Stronger than before. It started with a message that felt harmless. You've changed. I was sitting at my desk when it came in, staring at a screen filled with numbers and notes. I didn't answer right away. I read it once, then went back to work. 10 minutes passed before I picked up my phone again. The message was still there. So was the feeling it stirred, familiar, but weaker now. Like an echo instead of a voice. People change, I typed back. A minute later, my phone buzzed again. That's not what I meant. Of course it wasn't. She didn't mean growth. She meant distance. The kind she could feel slipping through her fingers. We hadn't spoken in days before that. Not really. Just short replies. Neutral words. No emotion. I could tell it bothered her. It was written between the lines. You used to talk to me, she wrote. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. Used to. That phrase carried so much weight. It told me she noticed my absence, not my pain. My silence, not the reason for it. I still talk, I replied. Just not as much. There was a pause. Longer than usual. Did I do something wrong? That question almost made me laugh. Almost. I didn't answer right away. I finished my work first. Closed my laptop. Took a breath. When I finally typed, my words were calm. We both know the answer to that. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. I didn't think you'd shut me out like this. That was the moment I understood something clearly. She wasn't upset because she missed me. She was upset because she no longer controlled me. That night, she called. I let it ring. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. I watched the screen light up, then go dark. My heart didn't race. My chest didn't tighten. I just felt steady. My sister called a little later. She texted me, she said without preamble. I sighed. Of course she did. She asked if you were okay, my sister continued. I told her you were busy rebuilding your life. There was a pause. She didn't like that answer. I smiled faintly. Good. The next time I saw her was unexpected. I was leaving work late, head down, earbuds in, when I nearly walked right past her. She was standing across the street, leaning against her car like she belonged there. I stopped. She smiled when she saw me. A careful smile. One I recognized. The kind she used when she wanted something. Hey, she said, walking closer. Hey, I replied. Up close, she looked the same. Same hair. Same familiar scent. But something felt different. I wasn't reaching for her. You didn't tell me you were working late now, she said lightly. I shrugged. Didn't think I needed to. She studied my face. You look good. I met her eyes. Thanks. That was it. No compliment back. No question. She blinked, clearly thrown off. I was hoping we could talk, she said. Like, really talk. I nodded slowly. About what? About us. There it was. I thought about all the nights I had begged for that conversation. All the times she brushed me off, said she was tired, said later. Later had finally come. And I didn't need it anymore. I don't think that's a good idea, I said. Her smile faltered. Why not? Because we already did, I replied. You just didn't listen. Her jaw tightened. That's not fair. I met her gaze, calm and unmoving. Neither was lying to me. Silence stretched between us. Cars passed. People walked by. The world kept moving. I made mistakes, she said finally. But so did you. I nodded. I know. She looked surprised by that. You're not even going to argue? No, I said. I'm not. That shook her more than anger ever could. I thought you'd fight for this, she admitted softly. I looked at her then, really looked at her. I did, I said. For a long time. Her eyes searched my face, like she was looking for the version of me that used to bend, to soften, to apologize first. She didn't find him. So what now? She asked. I stepped back slightly, adjusting the strap of my bag on my shoulder. Now I keep going. I walked past her before she could say anything else. That night, she texted again. I didn't realize you were serious about moving on. I stared at the words and felt something close to peace. I was serious about myself, I replied. That message stayed on read. At work, things kept improving. I was trusted with more. Heard more. Seen more. People asked my opinion, and waited for the answer. It felt strange. Good. Deserved. My sister noticed it too. You stand differently now, she said when we met for coffee. Like you're not apologizing for existing. I laughed. I didn't realize I was. You were, she said gently. But not anymore. Later that evening, I checked my phone and saw a missed call from her. I didn't call back. Not because I was angry. Because I didn't feel the need. That was the real change. She noticed. I knew she did. I could feel it in the way her messages shifted, from confident to confused to careful. She had lost her footing. And I had found mine. For the first time, I understood something clearly. Availability is power. And I was no longer giving mine away to someone who only valued it once it was gone. I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. And that freedom told me I was ready for whatever came next. I didn't hear about her life falling apart all at once. It came in fragments. Small pieces of information that reached me without effort, like the truth finally getting tired of hiding. At first, I didn't want to know. I told myself it wasn't my business anymore. That whatever happened to her was no longer tied to me. But when you share years with someone, your worlds don't separate cleanly. They unravel slowly, thread by thread. It started with a mutual friend running into me outside a cafe. You've been busy lately, he said casually. Haven't seen you around. I've been keeping to myself, I replied. He nodded, then hesitated. Probably for the best. I knew that tone. The one people use when they're holding back information. For who? I asked. He sighed. For everyone. I didn't push. I didn't have to. A week later, my sister called. She's not doing great, she said. I closed my eyes. How not great? She quit her job, my sister replied. Or got pushed out. Depends on who you ask. That caught my attention. She loved that job. Bragged about it. Used it as proof she was ahead of me. What happened? I asked. Turns out people don't like surprises, my sister said carefully. Especially when trust is involved. I didn't need details. I understood enough. Lies have a shelf life. I sat with that information longer than I expected. Not because I was happy about it, but because I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No relief. Just a quiet confirmation of something I'd already learned. Shortcuts always collect interest. She reached out that night. Can we talk? I really need to. I stared at the message, feeling the shift in tone immediately. Gone was the confidence. Gone was the casual curiosity. This message carried weight. Urgency. I didn't respond right away. An hour later, another message came through. Please. That word used to undo me. Now, it just made me pause. I replied with one sentence. What do you want to talk about? The response came fast. Everything. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Everything. That was a heavy word for someone who avoided real conversations when they mattered most. Be specific, I typed. A few minutes passed. I messed up, she wrote. And I didn't realize how badly until it was too late. There it was. Regret. Not accountability. Not remorse. Timing. I'm sorry, she added after a pause. I read those two words several times. They didn't land the way I imagined they would. They didn't heal anything. They didn't hurt either. They just existed. I believe you're sorry, I replied. I just don't think you're sorry for the right reasons. Another pause. What does that mean? I thought carefully before answering. It means you're hurting now, I wrote. And I'm not the one who can fix that. That was the truth. She tried calling. I let it ring. Not because I wanted her to suffer, but because I knew what that call would turn into. Tears. Explanations. Rewriting history until I was partially responsible for her choices. I wasn't stepping into that again. Over the next few weeks, I heard more. The person she left me for didn't stay. Trust issues, apparently. Funny how that works. When a relationship begins with betrayal, it rarely ends with loyalty. Friends distanced themselves. Not dramatically. Quietly. Invitations stopped coming. Conversations grew shorter. The same slow fade she once gave me. Karma didn't crash into her life. It simply removed the safety nets. She texted less often after that. When she did, the messages were softer. Almost careful. I see how strong you've become. I didn't think you'd actually be okay without me. That one made me exhale slowly. I wasn't okay for a long time, I replied. But I learned how to be. There was no reply to that. At work, things continued to move forward. I was given more responsibility, more trust. People listened when I spoke. They didn't interrupt. They didn't dismiss me. It wasn't luck. It was alignment. For the first time in my life, my inner world and outer world matched. I wasn't pretending anymore. I wasn't shrinking. I wasn't chasing validation from people who measured love by convenience. One evening, my sister asked me something unexpected. Do you feel like you won? I thought about it. About the nights I couldn't sleep. The days I doubted myself. The moments I almost went back just to avoid the pain. No, I said finally. I feel like I stopped losing. That felt more honest. She didn't fall because I pushed her. She fell because she built her life on choices that couldn't hold weight. And I didn't rise because I planned revenge. I rose because I chose myself, again and again, when it would have been easier not to. That night, another message came through from her. I wish I could go back. I stared at it for a long time before replying. So do I typed. But for different reasons. That was the last real conversation we had. I didn't block her. I didn't need to. She faded out naturally, like all things do when they no longer have access to your time, your energy, or your heart. Lying in bed, I realized something important. Karma isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It waits until you're strong enough to stand without revenge, and then it handles the rest. I closed my eyes feeling lighter than I had in months. Not because she was hurting, but because I wasn't anymore. And that, more than anything, told me I was ready for the final step forward. The keys felt heavier than they should have. I stood in the hallway of the apartment, staring at the door like it was a mirror. Same color. Same scratches near the handle. Same place where I used to fumble for my keys after work, excited to be home. Except this time, it wasn't our place. It was mine. I had taken it back quietly. No announcements. No explanations. When she moved out weeks earlier, she didn't fight for it. I think part of her believed I wouldn't dare return. That I'd stay gone, still wounded, still unsure. She was wrong. The locksmith knelt near the door, tools laid out neatly on the floor. "Won't take long," he said. I nodded, stepping back as he got to work. The sound of metal scraping echoed through the hallway. Sharp. Final. Each click felt like something inside me lining up, settling into place. I watched his hands move, steady and practiced, and thought about how long it took me to learn that boundaries require action, not just intention. When he finished, he handed me a new set of keys. All set. I thanked him and closed the door behind him. That was when I noticed her. She stood across the parking lot, near her car, arms crossed tight against her chest. I hadn't heard her arrive. I hadn't expected her at all. But there she was, watching. For a second, the old reflex kicked in. The urge to explain. To soften the moment. To ask why she was there. It passed. I walked down the stairs slowly, keys clinking in my hand. She straightened when she saw me approach. "You changed the locks," she said, stating the obvious. Yes. Her eyes flicked to the keys, then back to my face. "That feels extreme." I almost smiled. "It's necessary," I replied. She shook her head slightly. "You didn't even tell me." "I didn't need to." That stung her. I could see it. The realization that she was no longer entitled to updates, no longer included by default. "I just wanted to talk," she said. "One last time." I studied her face. She looked tired. Not broken, just worn down by choices she could no longer outrun. "We've talked enough," I said. "That's not fair," she replied quickly. "You're acting like I don't matter at all." I took a breath, choosing my words carefully. "You matter. Just not in my decisions anymore." Silence settled between us. She looked around, like she was hoping the place might recognize her. Like the walls would remember. They didn't. "I didn't think you'd actually come back here," she said quietly. "I didn't think I'd need to," I answered. But I realized something. "What?" "I didn't leave because I was weak," I said. "I left because I was done begging to be respected." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. I think she knew tears wouldn't work anymore. "I miss you," she said. I believed her. And still, I shook my head. "I miss who I was before I lost myself," I replied. "And I can't go back to that." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I never thought you'd actually move on." That sentence landed heavier than she intended. I know, I said. That was the problem. She looked at me then, not the way she used to, but like she was seeing me clearly for the first time. A version of me that didn't reach, didn't bend, didn't wait. So this is it, she asked. I nodded. This is it. I turned toward the building, keys in hand. Behind me, she spoke one last time. I hope it was worth it. I stopped, just for a second, and looked back. It wasn't about worth, I said calmly. It was about survival. I walked away without waiting for her response. Inside the apartment, the air felt different. Empty, but clean. I stood in the living room and let the quiet wrap around me. No tension. No expectation. No walking on eggshells. I locked the door. The sound echoed softly. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel victorious. I felt grounded. Changing the locks wasn't revenge. It wasn't a message meant to hurt her. It was a promise to myself. That I would never again leave the door open for someone who taught me how easily they could walk away. And as I set the keys down on the counter, my counter, I knew the final chapter of my old life had closed. Whatever came next would be built on something solid. Me. The apartment was quiet in a way that didn't scare me anymore. I woke up the morning after changing the locks and lay there for a moment, listening. No arguing voices in my head. No urge to check my phone. No tight feeling in my chest. Just stillness. I used to think quiet meant something was wrong. Now I knew better. I got up, made coffee, and stood by the window as the city moved below me. People rushing to work. Cars honking. Life continuing without caring who had lost or won what. For the first time in a long while, that didn't make me feel small. It made me feel free. My phone buzzed once on the counter. I didn't rush to it. When I finally picked it up, there was no message from her. No missed calls. No long paragraphs filled with regret. Just nothing. And I was okay with that. I thought about everything that had happened, how certain I once was that losing her meant losing myself. How I believed love had to hurt to be real. How I stayed quiet when I should have spoken and apologized when I shouldn't have. I didn't blame myself anymore. I understood myself. I had loved deeply. I had trusted fully. Those weren't weaknesses. They only became dangerous when I gave them to someone who didn't know how to hold them. Later that day, my sister stopped by. She looked around the apartment, smiling softly. It feels different, she said. It is, I replied. She sat across from me, studying my face. You look lighter. I am, I said. Not because everything is perfect. But because I'm not carrying what isn't mine anymore. She nodded, like that was the answer she hoped to hear. After she left, I sat alone for a while, thinking about forgiveness. Not hers. Mine. Forgiving myself for staying too long. For ignoring my instincts. For thinking love meant endurance. I realized something important then. I didn't need her regret. I didn't need her apology. I didn't need her to understand what she lost. I already knew what I gained. That evening, I went through my old phone photos one last time. Not to hurt myself, just to close the loop. I deleted what no longer fit. Not in anger. Not in sadness. In acceptance. There was a version of me in those pictures who deserved better than what he got. And there was a version of me now who would never let that happen again. Before bed, I wrote a short list in a notebook. What I won't tolerate. What I value. What I expect from myself. Her name didn't appear anywhere on the page. That felt right. As I turned off the light and lay down, I didn't feel like a man who had won a battle. I felt like a man who had walked away from a war that was never meant to be fought. I didn't come out unscarred. But I came out aware. Aware that love should feel like safety, not fear. Aware that silence can be strength. Aware that walking away can be an act of self-respect. She thought I'd never recover after moving out. She was wrong. I didn't just recover. I rebuilt. And this time, I locked the door, not to keep her out, but to protect the life I finally learned how to choose.